In the shadow of Troy's mighty walls, destinies are forged. Here, heroes and kings prepare for a war that will echo through eternity. Achilles, the greatest of the Greeks, stands restless, his armor gleaming, his eyes fixed on glory and fate. Hector, Troy's noble defender, steels himself for the coming storm, bound by duty and love for his city. Paris, whose fateful choice will ignite the conflict, gazes toward Helen, the woman whose beauty launched 1,000 ships. Agamemnon, king of kings, gathers the Greek armies, his ambition and pride fueling the march to war. Above them, the gods watch: Zeus, Athena, Aphrodite, each ready to tip the scales, their rivalries entwined with mortal fate. Tension crackles in the air, warriors sharpen their blades, kings weigh their choices, and the world holds its breath for the first clash. This is the dawn of the Trojan War, a story of ambition, love, and vengeance, where every choice will shape the fate of empires. The spark that ignited the Trojan War was not a grand alliance, but a series of personal choices, desires, betrayals, and wounded pride. At the center stood Paris, Prince of Troy, and Helen, Queen of Sparta. Their union, born of passion and the gods meddling, shattered the peace between Troy and Sparta. Helen's departure with Paris was a choice that would echo through history. Menelaus, Helen's husband, was consumed by outrage and humiliation. His honor wounded, he vowed to bring her back, no matter the cost. He turned to his brother, Agamemnon, the most powerful king in Greece. Agamemnon saw not just a brother's pain but an opportunity for glory and conquest. The call to arms spread across Greece. Kings and heroes answered, bound by oaths and ambition, each with their own reasons for war. Behind it all, the gods watched, their rivalries and whims setting the stage, but it was mortal choices that set the world on fire. The armies marched, and the fate of Troy was sealed by the passions, mistakes, and ambitions of a few. Across Greece, word spread, the greatest heroes were summoned for war. Achilles, swift-footed and proud, answered the call. Odysseus, clever and cautious, prepared his ships. Ajax, mighty and steadfast, joined the ranks, as did Nestor, wise and seasoned by battle. Messengers rode from kingdom to kingdom, forging uneasy alliances and reigniting old rivalries. Some came for honor, others for glory, and a few for vengeance. In the camps, armor was polished and swords sharpened. The air crackled with anticipation and tension as leaders debated strategy and warriors boasted of their strength. Achilles and Agamemnon, both proud, eyed each other warily, foreshadowing the conflicts to come. Odysseus counseled patience while Ajax stood ready for battle. At Aulis, over 1,000 ships assembled, their sails billowing in the wind, ready to cross the sea to Troy. But the fleet was becalmed. The seers declared the gods were watching, their favor uncertain. Sacrifices were made, prayers offered, and omens read in the stars. At last, the winds returned. The fleet set sail, a vast armada stretching to the horizon, each ship carrying hopes, fears, and the weight of destiny. The journey was perilous. Storms, confusion, and the will of the gods led them astray before they finally glimpsed the walls of Troy. The Greeks landed and set up camp, bracing for a siege that would test every alliance and ambition. Within Troy, King Priam and Hector readied their defenses, knowing the greatest warriors of Greece now stood at their gates. The first skirmishes erupted, and the long, bitter war began, heroes and gods alike watching as fate unfolded. The siege of Troy had begun. For 9 long years, the Greeks and Trojans clashed outside the walls of Troy, battles raging, neither side able to claim victory. The Greeks camped in the open, launching assaults. The Trojans defended their city with fierce determination. In the war's 10th year, Achilles, the Greeks' greatest champion, withdrew from battle after a bitter dispute with Agamemnon. Without Achilles, Greek morale faltered. Hector, Prince of Troy, led daring attacks, driving the Greeks back to their ships. The fighting was brutal. Heroes met in single combat, armies clashed in the dust and blood. Achilles' absence was felt everywhere as Greek champions fell and hope faded. Desperate, Agamemnon pleaded for Achilles to return, offering gifts and apologies. But Achilles' pride held firm, and the Greeks suffered heavy losses. The gods watched and intervened at times, but it was the courage and mistakes of mortals that shaped the war's fate. The battlefield became a place of glory and ruin, where heroes rose and many fell. The cost of pride, bravery, and human error would soon be paid in blood. As the Greek lines falter, Patroclus, driven by loyalty and desperation, begs Achilles to let him fight. Achilles relents, and Patroclus dons his friend's legendary armor, determined to turn the tide. Disguised as Achilles, Patroclus rallies the Greeks, his courage inspiring hope where there was none. He drives the Trojans back from the ships, pushing them toward the city walls. But intoxicated by victory, Patroclus ignores Achilles' warning to stop and recklessly pursues the enemy too far. At the gates of Troy, Patroclus is struck down, his life cut short by Hector, the city's greatest defender. With his dying breath, Patroclus foretells Hector's own fate, sealing a tragic bond between the two warriors. Achilles is shattered by grief and rage, his heart consumed by the loss of his dearest friend. All quarrels forgotten, Achilles' only thought is vengeance. His mother Thetis brings him new armor forged for a hero, and Achilles returns to the battlefield, unstoppable and relentless. He cuts down Trojan after Trojan, driving them behind their walls in a storm of fury. Only Hector dares to stand against him, despite the pleas of his parents to seek safety. In a final, fateful duel, Achilles and Hector meet outside the walls of Troy. Achilles slays Hector, avenging Patroclus, but his victory is stained with sorrow. In his grief and anger, Achilles drags Hector's body in the dust, a final act of vengeance that shocks even his allies. The Trojans mourn their fallen champion, while the Greeks reclaim their honor at a terrible cost. The brutality of war reaches its peak, and the cycle of loss and revenge is complete. As the dust settles, the end of Troy draws near, and the price of pride and grief is paid in full. With Hector fallen, the Greeks face despair. Yet in the darkness, Odysseus conceived a daring plan, one that would demand courage, secrecy, and the trust of every Greek leader. The Greeks worked in silence, constructing a massive wooden horse under the watchful eyes of their enemies. Every hammer strike was a risk, every whispered command a test of resolve. Odysseus handpicked the bravest warriors to hide inside the horse, knowing discovery meant certain death. The rest of the army prepared to vanish, leaving only the horse as a mysterious offering. As dawn broke, the Greeks set their camp ablaze and sailed away, feigning defeat. The Trojans, bewildered, gazed upon the colossal horse left at their gates. Despite warnings from Cassandra and the priest Laocoon, the Trojans debated the horse's purpose. The gods, ever fickle, sent omens that silenced doubt. With a final decision, the Trojans hauled the horse inside their walls, believing it a gift of surrender. That night, Troy erupted in celebration. Laughter and music filled the streets, as hope returned to a city weary from war. But as the revelry faded, the city fell into a deep, unsuspecting sleep. Inside the horse, Odysseus and his men waited, hearts pounding, ready to risk everything for victory. The fate of Troy now rested on a single, breathless night. Night falls as Greek warriors slip from the belly of the wooden horse, hearts pounding with dread and resolve. They open Troy's gates, unleashing the waiting army and sealing the city's fate. The Greeks surge in, swords drawn as chaos erupts. Flames devour homes and the cries of the innocent fill the air. Troy is engulfed in fire and ruin. Families are torn apart and hope vanishes in the smoke. Paris, meek on the battlefield in close combat, uses his bow skill to take down the mighty Achilles with a single arrow to the ankle. Achilles, the unbeatable warrior, dies within minutes. The city's treasures are seized, temples defiled, and the sacred places of Troy reduced to rubble. The gods, watching from afar, are outraged by the Greeks' cruelty and sacrilege. They vow vengeance, and the victors, burdened by their own brutality, prepare to leave the ashes behind. Troy is no more, a civilization reduced to ashes, its memory a warning for all time, and the ruin of a once great city. As Troy burns, the victors begin their long journeys home, each marked by loss and uncertainty. The gods, still watching, unleash storms that scatter the Greek fleet across the seas. Many heroes meet tragic ends, some lost to the waves, others to betrayal and fate. Agamemnon returns to Mycenae only to be murdered in his own hall. Menelaus and Helen wander for years, their reunion haunted by memories of war and loss. Odysseus, cursed by Poseidon, is cast adrift. His journey home becomes a decade of trials and transformation. Meanwhile, a handful of Trojans escape the ruins, led by Aeneas, who carries his father and son from the flames. They journey into the unknown. The heroes of Troy, Achilles, Hector, Helen, and Odysseus, became legends, their deeds echoing through the centuries. Their struggles on the battlefield, of courage, pride, and loss, have inspired countless generations to reflect on the meaning of heroism. The gods watched and intervened, but it was mortal ambition and failure that shaped Troy's fate. Thank you for watching our recollection of the Trojan War myth and legend. Please like, share, and subscribe for more historical adventures.